Hi, Caleb with Brownells here, and in today's quick tip, I'm going to show you how to mount your Rein Series light from Cloud Defensive onto your firearm. Full disclosure, Cloud Defensive has a video on how to do this, but I'm going to do it because I like to do things too. Alright, so let's get started. So when you open your packaging, and for this we're using the micro. If you have the full size, the process is exactly the same. Alright, so I'm going to take out my packaging here, my hardware. So M-LOK screws and nuts, you will definitely need those. And the inline mount that comes with it. All of this comes with the light, by the way. And if you click this video because you want to just know what the light is, we already did that video. Go check it out. It tells you all about the lights. And we have the battery. We'll put that into, I guess. And we have some mounting hardware for the pad. And then the other stuff in the box is like the charger and whatnot. We'll leave that in there. There's probably some instructions in there too, but we'll let this be the instructions, right? So I've actually, full disclosure, I've never mounted one of these. This is my first time doing it. I've played with these lights a little bit, but I have not actually mounted one on a firearm. Alright, so let's jump right into it. First thing I like to do is just to, actually, I literally just said, I never mounted one of these and then immediately led with, first thing I like to do, I don't know what I like to do, I've never mounted one of these. But I feel like I've done enough lights in general to kind of get through this. Alright, so take off your tail cap. If you're going to be using the battery it comes with, which I highly recommend you do, let's go ahead and do a test fit. The reason we're doing this, and we'll take off the head here to put the light in, or the battery in. Now, if you notice, there's this orange piece in here. That is actually an adjustment tab for the battery. So if you're using the battery it comes with, which, like I said, I recommend you do, you will get the best performance out of this battery. We're going to go ahead and set it up for that. If you use CR123s, you can set it up for that as well. But all we're going to do is drop our battery in, and it's going to go plus and minus. This has been the exact same since I was a toddler. Not that I was playing with batteries as a toddler. Disregard that. But it's been the same forever is what I'm trying to say here. Alright. And there may or may not be a little bit of play in the battery, which there's a little bit of play in this one. What we need to do is adjust the cap. So you can actually reach in there with your finger. If you have giant fingers, you can use anything else. The head of a 5.56, a screwdriver, whatever. And just rotate it. Alright. And just do it until it's nice and snug. You don't have to make it super tight. And if you look, you notice it's like a castle nut down there, right? All you're doing is just rotating it. You're not putting any torque on it. You're just rotating it until it stops. And now there's no more play or movement in it. And now it's adjusted to the battery. Alright, so let's go ahead and bust out our fix-it sticks, which we use for almost everything. Alright. And Brownells Magnetip screwdriver, because they're awesome. Okay, so let's decide where we want this light to be. Alright. I like to mount my lights at the 45. I like to kind of tuck it into this little space here. You can mount it on the side if you want. You can mount it on the bottom if you're strictly just playing a video game and not using this in real life. But if you're using this in real life, put it on one of the sides, right? For this, let's go ahead. Let's see here where we're gonna, yeah, that'll be good. We're gonna stick this thing right here. Alright, so what we're gonna do is open our little hardware package here. Dump that on the table. Now, you got the 2 M-LOK nuts. You have the 2 M-LOK screws, which are the larger screws. And then the 2 smaller screws are to retain the light to the mount. Okay, so let's decide what size we need here. Alright, so light to the mount, that's 3/32. And you can use a little bit of thread locker if you want on this. If you're going to use one, use a low strength, like blue Loctite would be just fine. And we're going to put the light on facing forward, okay? Don't do any of this stuff right here. I mean, I guess you could, but I mean, no, you couldn't, because you couldn't get to your M-LOK screws. Don't be crazy, all right? We're going to mount it just like this. If you don't, you're going to have to redo it. All right, so if you notice, there's 2 sets of holes here. That's for giving you the most options. So when we mount that, it's going to be here. You can mount it further forward, especially if you're using a suppressor like full time and you're not worried about blasting your light with carbon and stuff. But we are not, so we're going to move it back just a hair. It's still going to get blasted with carbon a bit, but not nearly as much, okay? That's just the part of shooting with the light on. Okay, so once you have it mounted like this, you got a good idea. Look at the holes on the bottom, look at the holes on the mount, and decide where you want them. So I'm probably going to use those bottom holes just to give me more clearance off of that front sight. So bottom holes, I'm referring to these 2 down here, not these 2 up here. Alright, make a mental note and drop them in. And I'll just kind of get it started by hand here. Alright, take my front one. Same exact thing. And as I mentioned, if you want to use thread locker, you can go ahead and just put a little bit of those on a little bit of that on the threads. And I'm just going to snug these up. You can put a torque wrench on them if you want, but I'm just going to snug them up. Don't go crazy. There you go. Okay. Now let's get the M-LOK stuff ready. Okay, so if you don't know how to mount M-LOK, we have a video dedicated to just how to mount M-LOK stuff. So if you have any questions after watching me do this, go watch that video. I promise it'll answer all your questions. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the part of the M-LOK nut that is sticking up. That's going to go against the mounts so that it looks like so. Okay. Now I'm going to take my screw from the opposite side and thread it in. And with that, yep, you're gonna have to change sizes, which is fine. And it is not the next size up, it's the next 2 sizes up, which is a 1/8, which I should have known. Pretty much everything else M-LOK uses that. Alright. I'm just kind of getting them started here. And I'm going to drop it. And then I'm going to pick it up and do it again. The part where I dropped it was in fact optional. You don't have to do that. And with that thread locker, that's going to be as tight as you can get them by hand probably. So this is why I really like using parallel pliers. Alright, so parallel pliers are literally just pliers where the jaws open parallel. You don't have to use these. These are kind of expensive, so it's not something I'd go out and buy just for doing this. But these are in my gunsmithing kit, so I use them. And if you are going to use these, I'd recommend using the smooth jaws, not serrated. And all I'm going to do is just grab them and just tighten it down. I'm trying to do this so you can kind of see here. I'm just tightening a screw. I promise you're not missing much. Alright, and I'll show you what exactly I did here in just a moment. Alright, there's one. I'm going to go ahead and move to the other one. Alright, so when installing M-LOK accessories, I tighten the nut as far down as it will go, and then I put them vertical. Let me rotate this here. Just like so. So the nuts are vertical, they're tightened all the way down to the screws. I just screwed them down until they stopped. I didn't lock them in place, I didn't torque them in place or anything. Alright, so now we can go ahead and mount this to our handguard, which we've been using this gun a bit, so it's a little beat up, so just disregard that. And we determined we were going to put it back here, I believe. And now that yeah, because that's good with her. Because I'm just thinking here, just kind of planning this out. I'm going to probably route this way. Yeah, so I'm just trying to determine where my thumb's gonna fall on this. Okay, yeah, so that's not gonna be bad. That's gonna be good. Okay, so we'll stick with the original plan there. And like I said, you plan all this out before you start tightening everything down, right? Like we planned it out so that we can use this grip and still activate the button. So now at this point, because we tightened those screws all the way down, we're going to go ahead and back off. And the reason we do this is because if you just thread it on a little bit, then try and mount the M-LOK, the nut will just be free spinning on the opposite side, and it's going to be very frustrating. But with them tightened all the way down, all we need to do is back off, like 1-2 turns roughly. And this will be different on your, it all depends on how thick your handguard is and different things like that. But back off until your screw rotates. And you'll be able to feel it rotate once it does. And you can just look in, I'm trying to do this so that the camera can see it here, but if you look in the bottom, you'll be able to see your M-LOK nut and see if it's rotating. And it's kind of dark in there, so you might need a flashlight. There's a company called Cloud Defensive that makes flashlights if you need one. There we go. It rotated, now we just snug it down. We'll do the same thing with the other screw. And there's no way we're going to be able to get this on camera. So like I said, just watch the M-LOK mounting video if you have any more questions on how to mount an M-LOK accessory. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and get our pad and switch and stuff set up. So what I'm actually going to do at this point, take off this end cap here. Right, we'll take that off. And then this assembly will come out of the tail. And it just pulls right out. Now I'm going to take the tail and screw it onto the body. Just like so. Nice and snug, right? Okay. Now I'm going to insert this so that my cable is somewhere where I would actually want it, right? You don't want it way over here sticking out, you know? You want it tucked in. So we can't go against the mounts. So we're going to do the next best thing and come up here to the top angle here. So this one's probably at about the 1130-ish, which is fine. We can run right there. Then we will remount this keeper here. I guess it's like a tail cap nut would be an appropriate description of this part. I'm sure it may say it in the instructions that we did not read. Alright, so we tighten this down. And the light's on. We'll just turn it off, right? And another thing I want to point out, the switch itself, like electronically, is independent from the rear button, which means if this breaks for whatever reason, you can still use the light with the button. And on the back here, it's momentary or on. The switch is just on or off. Okay. So let's do a little bit of cable management here. I'm gonna mount this. Let's see. Let me see what's it. If I were a right, no, I'm a left-handed shooter. I was gonna say if I were a right-handed shooter, so I'm gonna want to be able to activate it with my thumb from either arm, which is why we're gonna be mounting it on the top here. And I guess if you wanted to, you could put a 1913 rail and stick it to that, but honestly, I mean, there's plenty of situations where it'd be better to put it on top, right? So I'm gonna want to go, my thumb falls about right there. So just kind of mental notes about right there. So yeah, that's where we're gonna want to put it. Alright, so looking at this here, you can see that there's some cables sticking up. I'll try to turn this so you can see it. Alright, so there's some cables looking a little ratty and stuff. If you actually turn it around this way, and we can kind of tuck it down in here, the reason being because the mount that this comes with has built-in cable management. So if we run it backwards, we can actually tuck it in. And allow me to demonstrate. Alright. We'll just dump out this hardware here. Alright, so as you can see, there's like these, let me get a pointing tool. There's these channels in the bottom here. That's where your cable's going to run through. So you can run it through the back and the front, or just either one. You can just you can early exit, if you will. You don't have to run through the full length. Alright. So, because my light and everything is on the right-hand side, I am going to set it up so that the screws are on the left-hand side, just to make things a lot easier on myself. And it's just a screw with a nut on it. We'll back it off. And the side that the light is on is where the nut is going to be, because the nut kind of seats itself. It nests inside of the mount, if you will. And you're going to have to kind of press these in, which is fine. Just do that with both of them. And you'll be able to see which side these go in because they're cut for the flats on the nut itself. And I know you can't see what I'm doing right now is because these are very small pieces, and I'll show you when I'm done, I promise. You're not missing much. And I'm just using my jaws on my pliers. You can use anything to just kind of push them flush into the mount. Or as flush as they'll go anyway. And that's what they'll look like. They're still a little off, but whenever you start torquing everything down, they'll flatten out. Alright, so now let's determine what size we need. Alright, back to the beginning. We're jumping back to the 330 seconds. And as I mentioned, the side with the nuts will be facing the light. And drop that. Again, that part's optional. Okay. They hook right into the actual pressure pad. It's super intuitive, nice and easy. Should be no problems there. And as I mentioned, I was going to have it facing this way. And fold it, loop it around, just like so. Right, that's what we're working with. Now, I would leave a little bit of a bow out right here so that you don't want to pull this tight and put like crazy pressure on where the wire's coming out of the switch. Leave a little loop there so that it can not be as much tension or stress or whatever you want to call it. And you just feed your post through one side, or your screw through one side here. And I'm just going to get it started. Hopefully I can get it over the rail with it this way. If not, we'll just loosen it, no big deal. Alright, now let's go ahead and clamp to our 1913. Yep, so we got it over. It's on, and now I'm just going to tighten it down. Don't go crazy. These are polymer. The actual like pieces that clamp to the rail. You don't need a ton of torque on them. Just snug them up. You'll be able to feel them getting tight. That's plenty. That polymer will flex and kind of act as kind of like a crush washer, if you will. And that's all there is to it. Now it is mounted and nice, and the wires or cables, if you will, are all tucked away, out of the way. I'm not going to snag them on anything. Nice and easy. Me being a left-handed shooter, I can use my top switch. I can use momentary on the back of the light if I want to. If I need to shoot right-handed, I can still activate that top switch. Alright, so that's all there is to it. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're watching this on the website, or if you just need help with anything for any reason ever, feel free to give us a call on the tech line. We'll be happy to help you out. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.